All right, buddy, we're live again. How are you doing, Mr. Gobby?
I'm doing good. No complaints at all.
Okay, buddy.
Good.
Let's yeah, me too. Hanging in there. As you can see, this is my first my official entry for the Movember Contest. And if there are no entries for the contest we're running with ReadyGo.ca for the Movember Contest, what we're Raymond Cote's here already. We're going to carry this over to the next month. And hopefully I can talk the sponsors into saving up the contest proceeds from this month to carry over and double it for December.
This is kind of like a bonus episode for me. I came on, I had no idea I was going on with a co-star of the movie Super Troopers. I mean, this is just awesome for me.
I was going for Tom Selleck. Thanks, man. And my wife's probably watching right now and shaking her head because she hates it. So right off the bat, let's recognize the sponsors. So we talked a little bit about ReadyGo, Garb, ReadyGo.ca. I see you're rocking your Arm Crossfire t-shirt, as am I. Yep. And, of course, Smirnoff Ice. I got to work tonight, so I'm not going to be partaking today, Gobby, but you do enough for both of us.
Yeah.
And, yeah, ReadyGo.ca. We got the Movember Contest running right now, and we will pick the winner at the end of the month on the final show of the month. Patreon members. You ready for this? Tier 1 Patreon members. Brandon Irwin, Jorn Harold Hebu. Tier 2, Sean Russell, Bernie Marcocia, Lucas Raymond, and our newest Patreon member at Tier 2, Zane William Nisley. Brand new Patreon member. So we have actually that Patreon, the money that's coming in, we have reinvested it into the show, and we've paid Hector Beltran to do our new backgrounds, our graphics on our Facebook page, and our graphics on our YouTube channel. And for graphic design work, he is exceptional and well priced. So, and he's also an arm wrestler, so we should be supporting him.
Sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm. Few events before we get rolling. McMillan. Few events before we get rolling I want to mention. So coming up November 30th, we got Slamfest happening in Thunder Bay. Paul Levesque's event. Some big money being offered there. December 7th, our good friend Gabby Vasconcelos is running her arm wrestling training seminar in San Diego. So check that out on the Facebook page that she has set up. And, of course, December the 14th, the Mark Davies Memorial Arm Wrestling Tournament in Daisy, North Dakota. So those are 3 events that are right around the corner in our area. Gobby, you got anything you want to jump in on before we get going?
No, had an interesting conversation with Simon Barry Ochoa regarding the conflict between CAWF and IAF. Some eye-opening stuff. Not in favor of this stuff was not in favor of WAF, but I mean, we'll have shows in the near future to delve into that with Rick and stuff like that. So.
Well, I got to tell everybody that's watching right now that Sunday morning, and I know Sunday morning is not ideal for a lot of people, but at 9 a.m. Central, we will have Rick Pinkney on the show live Sunday morning. And then this show that you're watching right now will be combined with the Rick interview and posted on YouTube on Monday. I am curious, though, because Simon historically has been pro-WAF. So what has he...
Oh, no. So there was this thing on Sean Hancock's wall, and then Simon came on and defended Wall in the statement that Joey Costello made. Now, in the statement Joey Costello made, he basically says arm wrestling's is going to be part of the Olympics. It's on board. We're good to go, all this stuff. And then as I send Simon and I go one-on-one on private messenger, he says, well, no, it's maybe as part of the Paralympics, not the regular Olympics. So it's like more skeevy, sleazy shit coming from Joey Costello. Backhanded, sleazy, deceitful.
Well, I would love to all the stuff I heard coming out of WAF was really good until there was the announcement that they were going to start banning athletes.
And Simon's position was U.S. and Canada did not vote in favor of doing any banning. This most came from the European countries. But you're still on board with an association.
Well, it doesn't matter. If it passed, it passed, right?
Well, it passed. They just didn't vote for it, but that doesn't matter. You're still part of it. I will never, ever, in this sport, ever be part or support anything that bans on a state, provincial, national, international level, bans or tries to minimize or negate the amount of participation an arm wrestler can do. It's one thing if you're Wall contracted and they want you to stay with Wall and not pull in another pro league. That I can kind of see a rivalry. But I don't know, man. I'm just generally speaking, on an international level like that, banning. And if you look at the banning thing, practicing with, associating with, man, it's weak shit.
It's an interesting comparison with WAL because WAL, I mean, in both cases you have a choice, but WAL is paying you as an employee to offer up your services and not go and compete with other professional organizations the next day. Like, it's not as restrictive as you might think. Some contracts are, many are not. Mine was simple in that they did not want me competing on television in the United States. It said nothing about other places in the world, nothing about Canada. It was simply, if UAL was back in its heyday, I wouldn't be able to go there and compete next month if they were going to put it on NBC.
And that's within the time frame of the point where you sign the contract and you compete, right? After you compete, you're good to go.
Some contracts are a little bit different. I mean, there's like a likeness right thing that you got for a period of time, but I mean, all of these contracts can be slightly different, but they're not super restrictive. But if you're telling me that I can't compete outside of a WAF sanctioned event for fear of being banned, that is way more restrictive, and there's no money involved. So WAF is telling me that I can't. Yeah,
exactly. With Wall, it looks like they're just safeguarding their business. It's smart business. With Wall, it looks like they're safeguarding their business. With WAF, it looks like a fucking narcissistic inferiority complex move. It's just weak across the board. It looks like they're scared.
And they're guarding their business. So, I mean, let's be honest. Overseas, that's a business. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, all this stuff that I heard, like I had a long conversation with Joey, and everything he told me was really good. But then you see what passed WAF Congress. And what the hell do you do about it? But I hope everyone from around the world will watch that show with Rick Pinkney, and he can talk about how the IFA started and give us the story right from start to finish. And in Canada, at some point, we're going to be put to a decision on which way we're going.
Well, isn't Rick taking a team to the IAF?
Yeah, they are. He is. He is indeed doing that.
So there's already a divide.
There is already a divide. But we decided, we were asked to take action against Rick as the CAWF executive, and we stood up and said, no, we're not doing that. So, man, that's going to be a tough one going forward.
Unreal.
Yeah. But it is
going back, 10, 11 years when I was at OAA, the Ontario Armwrestling Board had a discussion platform. Joey was, at one point, was president of the OAA, and it was a public discussion platform, and I voiced my opinion against something he said, and he banned twice. He gave me lifetime bans on the OAA just because simply I just didn't agree with him, somewhat aggressively. But that's who he is. Rick Pinkney and Joey Costello are polar opposite style dudes. I don't know Rick crazy well, but from what I know, I would trust Rick with my life. Joey, on the other hand, as sleazy, as snaky as they come, from my instinct, from what I gathered.
Well, I'm going to reserve judgment, but hopefully Rick will be able to shed some light on everything this Sunday rather. And it's also an election year for the CAWF, so people should keep that in mind. So Ray Cote, Bruce Willis, Bryce McMillan, Candy Withrow, Passmore, Brandon Justice, welcome to the show. I see everyone in the comments. If you guys got anything you want chatted about, throw it out there. Otherwise, we should get right into the Q&A. Because there was a question. Remember when Bart Grindheim, remember we were answering his question and Travis phoned in. So he wrote me back and he said, hey, guys, you didn't quite answer my question, probably because Badgent rang maybe. I was interested to know why Gobby has static hold on a preacher bench as a go-to exercise for his hook. How he does it. So how do you do your static curl on a preacher bench as your go-to move?
Historically, what I did is I would go on the so you have a straight angle and you have the 45 degree. I would put my tricep on the 45 degree. My arm would lower just past 90 to where I would simulate just stopping a guy on the table. So maybe 2-3 inches from the pin. I would slowly have a negative contraction to that point and then hold that point from anywhere from 6 to 12 seconds, depending where I'm at. And basically that was my static, and that was basically just mimicking my arm angle and the type of resistance I would have on the table. Now it's very hard on the elbow. It's because I was able to go quite heavy because of the angle and it was hard on the elbow. Now what I do to get the same amount of resistance with less tension on the elbow or less pressure on the elbow, I use the other angle, the straight angle, and come across. So when you're leaning over, opposed to just standing upright, you can't use 110, 115 pound dumbbell to do a static, or at least I can't, not for time. So the weight is less, but I find because it's not so hard on my elbow, I can do more of it, and it translates as well to the table. Sometimes better because I can keep my hook tighter with that angle. So I've been transitioning to that. Essentially the same thing, just changing the angle a bit so there's a little bit less stress on my elbow.
And that's that.
Yeah. I think the Lorette curl is dynamite for any type of hook. I think that's probably one of the best static bicep work you can do off the arm wrestling table.
Right on, man. Brandon Justice says, I like how Gobby says things without fear of repercussions. I like that too, Brandon. When it comes to the WAF versus IFA thing, I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can be, because there will come a time when I will have an influence over how people vote. So until that time comes, I want to gather as much information as I can, and I will release it when the time is right.
That's a good point, because
hey, go ahead.
That's a good point, because in my defense, I have a small following, but I don't hold responsibility. Like I have zero political affiliation. People don't vote, or I don't sway opinions like you possibly can. So you have a little bit more professional responsibility when you voice an opinion. I can just fucking say what I want. I pretty much can, and it's a fun deal because, and I do, right? But I'm not in your position. I don't have. You don't have the luxury I have. You have more responsibility. Well,
timing is everything too, right? So, I mean, I've had experiences with both gentlemen that are going to be on each side of this argument. And I don't want to, we'll get into it when the time's right. And that will be shortly before the CAWF Nationals. Pillar of strength. Brandon Justice, Gobby is just here to be a pillar of strength. Excellent.
Well, and that's kind of why we're a good balance, because you're more pensive and you'll calculate your words carefully before you voice them. I don't do that. I just say what I want, and if there's repercussions afterwards, I deal with it later. I don't, so if we were both like me, It wouldn't be good. It wouldn't make for a good show. We need a little bit of both.
We might have been banned from YouTube a while ago.
Yeah, that too.
So we have Galveston Arm Wrestling is asking, does WAL contract offer compensation for injuries? I've never heard of that being part of a WAL contract. The other thing is, I don't know. So maybe some guys have that in there. I doubt it. I doubt it very much. I don't think we're quite there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you quantify what somebody would have made if they did not get injured, if it was like a workers' compensation type thing? But it's hard to say. And then Jonathan Thompson, if the IFA allows each country to determine how individuals qualify for the IFA championship, how would you like Canada to handle qualifiers? Nationals, provincials, individual qualifying tournaments, something else. I think the current system of nationals is probably the best route.
Well, because we have to mimic the weight classes, right?
Right.
So it's not like you can hand pick. There has to be an official tournament with official weight classes. You have to follow the structure.
Yeah. I think that's the only answer. And if ultimately the CAWF decides to go with the IFA, then we need to probably come into line with what the weight classes are that they're offering. And there have been times like the CAWF did not line up with the WAF classes, and there was a way to do it. It wasn't perfect, but we always managed to fill the team. Now, that being said, if the IFA Worlds are in the United States next year, like they're presumed to be, there's going to be a lot more people wanting to go. So it's going to present a problem as far as fairly distributing the spots to the people who have qualified for those classes.
Well, fuck fair. You win. You know, you got to win your class. It sucks
But the problem is, if you got 3 winners in 2 classes, how do you pick who goes?
Why would you have 3 winners in 2 classes?
Because the classes don't line up. So you might have 3 winners of the nationals going into fill 2 classes at IFA, for example.
Because the weight classes don't match up?
They may not.
Well, why would you have a nationals that doesn't? I mean, why wouldn't you cater your nationals to the worlds if you're qualifying for it? I mean, it's ridiculous not to.
That's true. But depending on where we're at, if we decide to not go one way or another, it could create quite a mess.
Yeah, that is a mess.
Yeah. Galveston Arm Wrestling, how do you strengthen your thumb for top roll and or set grip? You want to take that one, Gabi? Because I don't know that I do any direct exercise to my thumb.
I don't use my thumb when I arm wrestle. I never cap. I don't grip high. But a thumb pad is good. General hand thickness is good, even in defending, because the top roller cannot get such a good, comfortable grip on your hand. One of the things I thought was the best for doing this is plate pinching, but again, with your 2 front fingers and your thumb, and for time. And because you're trying to isolate one finger, you're not doing 3, 4, 5 seconds. This has to be 15, 20 seconds with a short pause, and it has to be high volume because you're dealing with such a small muscle part. You can't be going for 1 rep max stuff. It doesn't translate to the thumb. I remember once I was doing a job for a guy and we were ripping out a carpet from a floor all day, and grabbing the edge of the carpet and ripping it off, and I remember the amount of my thumb pad was just blown up. It was just incredible. So then I said, well, let me try to mimic that in the gym. And the way I mimicked in the gym was to do farmer's walks, basically with I would take 2, I believed it was 2 10 kilogram plates in each hand, and I would pinch it and walk. Again, just using my 2 front fingers and my thumb, and I do a 50-foot walk. Had to stop, put them down, take a 30-second pause, do the same thing, and that was a way to mimic it, which worked for me.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on to the next question on our email list, and this is a good one. It's from Brandon Irwin. Why do promoters feel the need to flood tournaments with super matches, and why can't arm wrestling tournaments have some kind of loosely followed schedule? I've heard people complain myself about the time commitment and boredom that comes along with competing in our sport, and it seems like a fairly easy fix. Many other recreational sports have provided us with a blueprint on scheduling and entertainment for the crowd, but arm wrestling doesn't seem to know how to draw the everyday guy or non-arm wrestler to tournaments. I've participated in many non-spectator friendly sports with very little involved, and yet the recreational athletes come out in droves to local competitions. What's the deal? Thanks, guys, and great job.
Mm-hmm. You can feel this one, or you can start rather.
Well, the problem is here we are seeing a couple of extreme examples. Now, I don't know that promoters are flooding events with super matches. With Jeff Frank's event, yes, there are so many super matches in that thing that it's going to be tough to wrap into 2.5 days of arm wrestling. Plus, there's 2 tournaments. There's an amateur tournament on the Friday with a series of lower tier super matches. And then there are all the pro super matches and a pro tournament on the Saturday. So it's going to be lengthy, to say the least. It is going to be a tough draw for the people that are not already involved in the sport. There needs to be a way that you can keep the spectator engaged and entertained. So whether that's prelims in the morning and then finals later in the day from a set schedule, or a couple of marquee super matches just to draw a little bit of a crowd, if you can draw a crowd with super matches, because there needs to be some buy-in from the people. Why am I coming to watch these 2 guys? Maybe they're world champions. It becomes a problem, and tournaments do tend to drag, but the kind of falls on the people that are running the events. So a couple of super matches, an earlier start with a set amount of time for the finals, for all the family, fans, and well-wishers to come and watch. I think that's the way to go. WAL does a great job of packaging their events, and there's very little dead time. They're always playing the story during the dead time, but that's on TV. In person, it's a little bit harder to do that, and unfortunately, you're seeing an extreme case of that with Jeff Frank's event. It's going to be probably the biggest and best event potentially in North America in many, many years, but will he be able to keep the non-arm wrestler engaged? I think he's probably going to struggle with that.
Yeah. Jeff Frank's a first time running an event, and he'll learn. And the next time he does it, if he does a second event, he will scale down his super matches. I think any big event, for example, if I'm a promoter and I'm running an event in Georgia, ideally I'd want one big super match from one of the biggest names in Florida and one of the biggest names in Georgia or another bordering state. So when he comes, he brings his team, he brings his fans, he brings his base, all within a good driving distance. So you want, even if you have to pay out of pocket, you want 2 big names that are fairly local. What Frank is doing is doing this to a 10th degree. Like, it's just the card is amazing. It might be a little bit too much, but what happens is it looks great on paper, but it makes for one fatiguing day, and those that actually come to participate in the event itself could be awfully frustrating. I also think that every event could be cut down 20% in time by encouraging your refs to ref quicker. I mean, refs are so hesitant. Refs today, when I watch reffing, they're so, we have a 30-second rule to ref script. Why the fuck am I watching 3 minutes into a match and you're not pulling yet or even setting up? Like, refs are so fucking passive sometimes, especially when it comes to bigger names, that they want both pullers to be happy that you're doing 3 to 4 minutes for certain matches. Equate that to a whole event. That's an hour and a half of setup time that doesn't need to be setup time. 30 seconds, ref script, go. You start fucking around, I'm fouling you out, you're going to sit down. Like, refs need to take control of this, and if they do, I think we can cut down by 20% minimum on all event time.
Completely agree. And there's a few things that promoters and the people doing draw sheets need to do is making sure they call on deck. So we're not, I've seen it time and time again where you're calling up a match and the people are sitting in the back of the room and need to make their way nice and slowly and do their entrance every time they have a match, like they're walking into the ring and they're in the WWF. Just be sitting there and ready to go. And when you call on deck, be sitting there and next to the stage in a staging area, if you will. Bryce McMillan says run 2 tables if it's big enough. That helps, but it only helps if there's no dead time.
Yeah.
So if one set of refs is just standing there while the other one's reffing, that's going to potentially speed up your tournament, but it's not going to make it that much more exciting if you can't keep those guys busy.
No, and oftentimes when you see tournaments running 2 or 3 tables, 80% of the time one table isn't being used, and 30% of the time both tables aren't being used. So I mean, you have to be efficient. You have to be disciplined. We have a local promoter, Avi Bench, who runs these events with novice, amateur, pro, which I'm not a big fan of, but he runs it so efficiently because he does the on deck. He encourages people to get up quick. If you don't get on, you're going to get disqualified. And I ref the event, and so I remember reffing BML in a super match, and he was being finicky, and I said, "Move again, I dare you. Go sit down. I'll disqualify you." And he right away, when they realize you're not fucking around and you will foul them out, I don't care who it is, they will adhere to what you're saying.
Yeah,
But
I have seen also promoters try to get a little bit too technological with their draw sheets on computers and screens, and it drags out the event when
and it runs smooth, and then there's a hiccup, and you got to take a 30-minute delay to fix the hiccup. It's like,
right.
Well,
where you can grab Tracy Arnold from Saskatchewan and bring her in, and she can run 4 tables on a piece of paper. It runs perfectly.
Certain things in arm wrestling are evolving and getting better and more efficient. Other things have been working for generations and should stay the same. Denise Waddles and Leonard Harkless ran successful, efficient tournaments for decades with a very simple template. And not high on technology, but it can work. We're trying to fix something that in some ways isn't broken. Just because we have technology doesn't mean we necessarily have to be using it in certain cases.
Yeah. So Luke Pulsher says your top refs are not taking 2 to 4 minutes to set up.
No, not top refs.
That is true, but you take a tournament like CAWF, where you have arguably some of the best referees in the world. You got Dave Hicks up there, you got Butcher up there, you got a ton of good refs, but you also have arguably some of the absolute worst referees up there. So it's tough. It's tough to find.
Do you?
Yeah. At CAWF?
I'll be honest. Like usually CAWF is if there's a critique, they're overly strict. But when I've watched CAWF in the past, refs are usually pretty damn good. I've seen the odd mistake where you can see it's a mistake, but I don't know, man. For me, for what I've seen, it seems pretty. I haven't seen too many really terrible calls at CAWF.
Tell me what your thoughts are on the photos we looked at with Jeff Hale when the guy is below the table, when the CAWF rules are clearly speak to that and call that a foul.
Well, for one, the issue on that whole picture has nothing to do with rules. The outcry, in my outcry, is the fact that when bigger names started king moving, and they said, well, I'm just doing, it had a cascading effect on the rest of the sport, and I predicted it would eventually, new guys would start trying it, and now we have it, for the first time ever, we have it cascading into CAWF. And you have a ref. Now, for me, the elbow didn't look like it was a foul. Now, you can be somewhat under the table in a winning or neutral position, but in a winning position, but as soon as it goes neutral or defensive position, that's a dangerous position. And I don't know if they were calling it or not. But to be honest, I wasn't really, when I watched that video or that still frame or whatever, the issue I take out of it is not what the refs are not calling. It's the fact that pullers now are are more comfortable with getting in that obscene move. So I didn't pay too much attention to what the refs were calling.
Yeah. Luke says they want to protest on that match.
They did, yeah.
But here's the issue, Luke. You may have won the protest, but how much did that take out of Jeff pulling against somebody in that move when that should have been called a foul? That's my issue. Now, we have a question here that is worth answering as long as I can find it again. And it was Rick Stacy, how old is too old to dabble in arm wrestling again? It's been about 30 years. That's one I would use. I don't think any age is too old. I think that you must use caution when you're reconditioning yourself to arm wrestling. And the part that I always think about this when someone has come back to arm wrestling after being a high-level arm wrestler is when Joyce King came back and she broke her arm at the UAL event. She was arguably the best women's arm wrestler on the planet for a time, and then took a few years away and came back, and she broke her arm in the event.
Yeah.
So I would just say use extreme caution when you're training and make sure you're conditioned. But dabbling is different.
Yeah, you mentioned that the operative word and all that is conditioning. Joyce, who was an absolute iconic figure, taking years off, she probably could have got that back in a couple months of training. I don't know if she had the couple of months of training. But she probably obviously wasn't coming in elite form condition and pulling in an elite form tournament. It's not so much like you have a 70-year-old wants to start arm wrestling. It's not illogical or ridiculous. But if they go to a pro tournament, they're probably going to hurt themselves. So go to practice with people roughly the same strength and build up bone density, build up resistance, build up conditioning for 6 months or a year. Go to a tournament and pull amateur. I mean, there's room for any age bracket, any demographic. It's just like you said, you got to be logical when it comes to conditioning, and you got to be realistic. You got to know where you are. A lot of injuries happen because people put themselves in situations that they're not completely physically or psychologically ready for yet. More times physically. I mean, we're talking about physical injuries, so it's more physical conditioning.
Yeah. Revisiting the Jeff Hale match. What rule was used to win the protest? Jonathan Thompson asks. I'm curious about that myself. Luke, if you could answer that, and we will say it here on the show. And then he says, FYI, your refs for your match with Cody will be Keith Michelle and myself. Perfect. Love it. No problem there. If I lose, I can blame the American refs.
Yeah. My issue, generally speaking, most top master refs are very vigilant and don't get bullied on the table. But when I saw the tournament you were at, when you pulled Richard, you got to figure out 95% of all the refs we see are not master refs. They're just guys that know reffing or have taken a couple courses or not. I've never taken any course, and they're reffing. They have a shirt on and they're reffing. But I'm not saying they're making a mockery of it, but the hesitation in the setup and not adhering to the 30-second rule and being sometimes bullied or intimidated by bigger names, match after match after match, can cause an addition of 20 to 25% on the complete at the end of the day, like an add-on of time.
Well, Terry's actually a level 3 referee inside of Canada, and Canada has a pretty solid referee program. I myself am a level 3. But master reffing is really hard to get into because you have to referee the open. I don't know if it's still this way, but I believe you have to referee the open classes, the senior classes on the Saturday of Nationals as part of your test and evaluation.
Yeah.
All right, moving forward. This is one that the question that I don't necessarily think will be valuable much, because this is did we answer this one already? It's a question on nutrition, general nutrition and performance advice geared towards nutrition effect on joints. You could also include regular diet versus competition day, maybe throw in some supplementation advice as well. Thanks for the great show. That's Joshua Schmo.
Yeah, I think we've touched on it, but when it comes to joint health, it's not so much what you're eating, it's what you're not. Or it's not so much what you're not consuming, but what you are. Got to stay away from highly acidic food, junk food.
Yeah.
I've said it many times when I'm eating shit, processed fast food, my elbows are almost get to the point where I can't even use them. And when I'm eating clean, I can arm wrestle every week, pretty much pain-free. There may be a little bit of residual inflammation, but nothing that I can't work around. But when I'm eating, refined sugar is brutal. Especially when you get above 30, 35. When you're young, you can do anything. But when you get a little bit older and you have, 10 years plus in the sport, if your diet's not clean, you will deal with a lot of inflammation. especially if you're a hook puller. I mean, it's a lot of it's on the elbow, shoulder, elbow.
Absolutely. So supplementation, I mean, glucosamine, protein.
Yeah, but I mean, you can take all the fish. I think you can take all the fish oils and all that stuff you want. And if 90% of your diet is processed food, or even 60% of it is fast food, or it won't help. It won't help. It won't counterbalance it.
Yeah. Eat lots of good protein sources and lots of vegetables. There you go.
Yeah.
It is not rocket science, but stay away from the stuff where you can drive up there with your vehicle and get it right through the window.
Yeah. And don't forget your ketones. Ketones are essential.
Absolutely. Exogenous ketones for brain function and clarity.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have it. This is interesting because Luke Polsher says because the refs did not call the foul for shoulder below in a neutral or losing position. Jonathan Thompson answers and says that is not a rule in the 2019 WAF rule set. At no time does it say a foul would be given for shoulder under the table. The rules are written horribly. As written, the refs called it correctly. Rules 8.1.6 and 8.1.5. Interesting. Wow, that's a bigger issue, guys. I don't have the rule book here, but it sounds like maybe the King's move was allowed.
Yeah. Well, let's face it. Let's face it. If you look at your league, your international league, and you want to take a business model like Wall, and they see the feedback and the views that the Devin and Dave match was getting, and they're thinking, well, if we allow the Kings, it's conceivable that, I'm not saying that was on their agenda, but if you have a business mindset only, and you disregard ethics and integrity, it's conceivable that you would take that out of the rule book. And but I just felt so bad for Jeff because, yeah, like you said, they reversed the protest, but his day is done. He's done. Like that. The amount of, I don't know how many pullers out there listening have had their arm defending a King's move in practice or in a tournament. But let me tell you, it's a day killer. Like, it's an event. It's a tournament killer. 20, 30, 40 seconds plus, you're done.
Yeah. I remember the old Arnold Classic days when we would be told we have 1 hour on the stage and then we're booted. Karen Bean giving us this speech in the direction the day before. We have exactly 1 hour on the stage, and then we're out of there. And then we're back the next day for an hour. And then Crazy George comes up and has a 15-minute long match, and all of a sudden people start to get a little nervous that we're going to get kicked out of the venue. Oh, man. Did Devin say you should eat as much sugar as you can while you're training or something along those lines? I don't know what he said. I think that's ridiculous. I think Devin is genetically different than most people, and if he said that, maybe that's what works for him.
He might have just meant glucose, like sugar. I mean, sweet potatoes has sugar. I mean, what kind of sugar are we talking?
Yeah.
Sugars, I mean, carbohydrates are essential when it comes to performing and competing and training. But if he's talking about white sugar, table sugar, that's a different thing. You got to understand with Devin too that he's got a brilliant mind for arm wrestling, and he's very analytical. But he's had 2 surgeries, he's got the longest levers in the sport, which gives him a leverage advantage, and yet he still had 2 surgeries. So sometimes you got to ask yourself, like I've always said, get advice from everyone, but certain people run to certain people for advice, and I think sometimes they run to the wrong people.
Yeah, and not everything works for everybody, and not even Devin's training will work for everybody. So,
I mean, and Devin's a good example. When he had the super match leading up with Dennis, he was all about that Krasmir, everything's on the table, and he swore by it. And then when he lost, he said, okay, I was wrong. He admitted he was wrong, and he was going to completely change the template or the environment in which he arm wrestled, or the mindset and philosophies and all that stuff. But that's what arm wrestling is. Arm wrestling is a constant cycle of changing paradigms. Oh, it's all about statics? Well, it's not. Well, it's all about the gym? Well, it's not. Well, it's all about the table? Almost, but it's not. I mean, things shift, people win. A gym guy will start dominating, and you're like, maybe it's all about the gym. Well, it's not, but open your mind to think, right?
Yeah. Okay, we got a couple of points here. This is we got an interesting debate happening in the comments section. I'll stick back to the Jeff Hale match. So Luke says he's saying it was a dangerous position, and the dangerous position was not corrected. The match should have been stopped and given the foul. So he's saying it speaks to that. We have a couple comments. Do you guys watch Uncle John's YouTube video breakdown? I generally watch all of the Uncle John YouTube channel. I think he's got a great channel. He might be the most underrated channel out there. Lots of great content always. And John is probably the best color commentary guy that I've ever, he's right up there with Neil Pickup, I think, as far as keeping the crowd entertained. And if we're talking about entertaining the crowd, Jonathan Thompson does an amazing job of that. And he kept the people interested and entertained at the Nationals, even though there was quite a bit of downtime.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. I checked one of his videos for the first time maybe 3-4 months ago, and he had at the time like 200, 300 subs. And I was so impressed with the tech aspect of his show and how he vocalizes. And I'm like, what a shame. Like, and he's a smart dude, and he's got a great character. It's amazing he has more now, but it's like the Travis Bajanses will automatically get subs because of their charisma. But in a perfect world, man, Thompson would be killing it with the subs.
And he will. He'll get there. Yeah. The other one is, what's your prediction for well, let's finish off on this King's Move subject a little bit here, because Joe Fox makes the point that he had King's Move done to him in Edmonton 2 weekends ago. It killed his stamina, and he thought he would have placed first or second, and did not like it. Michael Nance, I'm sure this has been asked but answered, but where can I get a Crossfire t-shirt? readygo.ca. Go there right now. Jonathan, maybe you should come on our show once, and we'll do some cross promotion, and maybe you can bring us on yours too. We'll do that.
Yeah, I'd love to have him on the show.
Yeah. And Chris Nicholas, and we talked about the Slamfest event off the top. Chris, if you weren't here, we're promoting the Slamfest event for you. But what is your prediction for the Slamfest super match, Jason Dubreuil versus Frazier Benoit? Frazier is my buddy, and so is Jason. They're both friends of mine. I do think Frazier's going to take that match. The numbers at the end of it, I think if Frazier is going to win it, he's going to need to win it 3-0.
Is it right arm or left?
Left arm. And those two guys are both known for their left arm.
Okay. Yeah. I'd like to see Frazier win because I like his style. He's more of a grind guy. Jason, I don't know about Jason now, but Jason, when I knew him, had one of the most. He had a hit that would similar to Matt Masks. Like, he had a well-timed, powerful, slamming, explosive hit, and he had a massive hand. Go Frazier, go.
There you go. Jonathan Thompson's going to come on the show. We just need to line it up. Jonathan, we're going to do it. We got some guests lined up coming on right now. So if you guys don't know, we do have a couple of guests already confirmed. The next one is Sunday morning. Facebook Live to be posted on Monday with this video is going to be Rick Pinkney. Now, let's polish off these questions.
Yeah.
Sean Russell. Chris, will you be interested in Red Deer? The August the 8th event.
I'm open to anything. I don't love traveling. I don't fly. I only drive. I'm open to it.
A long drive.
Yeah, no, I have flown. I can fly. I try to avoid it. Anything under 20 hours, I'll drive. I'm open, depending on who I'm pulling or if I'm pulling anyone. But just to be there and see what's going on and be live would be huge. Ryan and I can do a live episode. I mean, always looking for an opportunity to do that. So I'd be open to it. But and at the same time, I don't want to charge someone. I don't want to charge a promoter more than it would take to get me there. But at the same time, I don't like to travel. But I'm open to it. Absolutely.
Okay, that answers that question. Same person. Sean Russell. I can pull 65 pounds with a spinning 2-inch handle, but only 30 pounds with a wrapped wrist wrench. Which is better for getting a stronger cup?
Wrist wrench, no doubt, all day. The fact that less weight is giving you more problems should tell you everything you need to know.
It's a much different angle of pull. So yeah, I would say that for this, specifically for the cup, definitely the wrist wrench.
Yeah, the Rolling Thunder is better if you're mimicking a powerlifting event where sometimes it's a powerlifting or a grip event competition thing. But for arm wrestling, like I said, the wrist wrench increases its resistance as you flex in. It's the only thing that does that, and it's the only thing that directly mimics cupping on an arm wrestling table with an opponent.
And the final question. Remember when we're asked the question about how to promote women's arm wrestling? Do you remember that, Gabi?
I do.
Sean Russell.
Aliens.
Yeah, I don't. She says that they do not agree. We must try to promote women in arm wrestling. I agree with that. Don't tell me why no. Tell me how yes, and how can our company do it?
Well, here's the thing. Why is it easier to promote men's arm wrestling than women's arm wrestling? Is it supernatural, or there's just men gravitate to arm wrestling more? You can't build something that's not there. You can't. I mean, you can try. It's been done. Women just have to get involved in arm wrestle. You can't build what's not there. Promoters, I haven't seen too many events where promoters don't have a women's class. I've seen a billion events where a promoter has 2 women's class, or 2 right, 2 left, and 3 women show up for 4 classes, and he has 12 trophies, 9 of which will be thrown out or recycled. So I mean, I'd love to see female arm wrestling grow, especially having Gabby on the show and seeing what a phenomenal athlete she is. But this is something it has to be done internally by women. Don't hope or magically wish that something falls out of the sky to help women's arm wrestling. You have to get out there, and well, I'm 132 pounds and it's a 170, or I'm 121 and it's a 154. Look, take your losses. The sacrifice to support something is not always sometimes comes at self. Like, sometimes you'll have to sacrifice your own result to build something. So what it is.
Yeah, I do think that putting. I think the answer would be in the WWE style model, where you're starting to promote the marquee women's matches to main event status on certain cards. So you have Gabby pulling Flicka on the same event as all of the men coming up here August the 8th. I believe that match should be the main or the co-main event of that entire card.
Yeah. If you ask Lori Cole, that's a good point. But if you ask Lori Cole if she thought she had the recognition equal to that of the men, the male counterparts back when she was arm wrestling, she'd probably say no. We live in a time where top female athletes, the top ones, are getting as much recognition. And one of the best things to happen to pro elite female arm wrestling was Gabby versus Sarah at Wall, because that was by far the best match of the card. And there's no reason to think we won't continue to see elite women perform in that league. So it's a good time to be a female arm wrestler, better now than any time in the history of our sport or mankind. Get the fuck out and arm wrestle. Get out, go to practices, go to tournaments. And if you don't think you're good enough, go to tournaments. If it's not your weight class, go to the tournaments. Bring your friends. What do you want?
So I'll tell you a little story. There was a promoter that came to me, and he's talking about setting up some marquee matches. And we had a conversation about what matches should be on the card for one of his upcoming events. And we talked about some marquee women's matches that could happen. And at one point, we had to stop and look at each other. And I said to him, that's your main event. That's your main event. The other one we talked about is your co-main event. And maybe you should just make an entire super match card with the tournament that features elite female arm wrestlers. Now, if I see that come to fruition, I think that might be something that is great, but it will, if nothing else, it will get recognition for the women arm wrestlers, and it will get people talking about that particular promotion for being bold enough to be the first in that category. So I really hope he does what we had talked about.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. Flicka and Gabby is as big or as leading a title as, to lead a card as any. I mean, Gabby is, her rep is brimming. Like she, going against a Canadian in Canada in Red Deer. I mean, that's huge. Like, I think things are great in arm wrestling for women at that level. Unfortunately, at the lower levels, there's a lack of volume, but that's not on promoters. That's not on us. That's just because there's a lack of volume.
Yeah.
It has to be built internally.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's, yeah. We got Muhammad Hassan. You want to take his question from the comments section? You got it sitting there? Muhammad Hassan might be the biggest fan of arm wrestling that I've seen in a long time. I see his name popping up on likes and all over the place. So good on you.
He also defends me a lot. He comes to my defense on every time I'm being attacked or trolled. He seems to come to my defense, which I always appreciate. Don't need, but I appreciate. Have you had much wrist injuries to deal with, Mr. Gabi? Do you recommend taking breaks a few months to heal it? Aside from something being broken, I don't think you should ever avoid or take breaks. I think you have to, depending on the gravity of the injury, you increase the volume or lower the resistance. But I've never had wrist injuries. I've been lucky. I also noticed that a lot of wrist injuries come with pronation. Pronation going bad, top rolling going bad. I'm not a top roller. I don't pronate. I can go years without training pronation. I've gone years without training pronation. It's not in my skill set. So I've been fortunate that way. But any injury you have, especially when it comes to smaller aspects like the wrist, it's super light work, daily blood flow, good diet, unless there's extreme pain. If you feel pain when doing even the lightest of movement, you have more than just a slight injury. You have something serious that will need time to rest and maybe even a cast or a doctor. So, but as long as you can move something without tremendous amount of pain, try to get, even if it's 25 to 50 reps, 5 pounds, 2.5 pounds. I tore my rotator cuff in 2006, and all I can do was plate work with a 2.5 or even a 5, at the most, a 5-pound plate for 6 months with my left. So it's frustrating, but the advice I got was tons and tons and tons of work at a very, very, very low resistance, high volume rate to force blood flow, especially in areas that blood does not necessarily travel to easily on your day-to-day work, day-to-day life.
Yeah. Luke Polster says there's a women's round robin in Salt Lake this weekend. Right on. Thoughts on using bands? They're fine. I don't have a strong opinion. I don't personally use bands at all. I use cables for consistent pressure. Bands would be good for increasing pressure, but I don't use them.
Yeah. I despise bands. I have one band and I use it to warm up, and I use it to do reverse rotator cuff stuff for my delts. It is not a simulation to arm wrestling.
Yeah.
When it comes to direct, proper simulation to arm wrestling resistance, it's table with humans, certain dumbbell work, and then it's cable on the table, and then least it's strap work on the table. Band work, sorry, not strap work. It's just not conducive. It's not what's going to prepare you to compete. It's not the same.
Yeah.
Is it better than doing absolutely nothing? Yeah, it's better than doing nothing, but it's nowhere near to optimal. And unless you've got 15 hours a day to train, I recommend trying to do things that are optimal.
Absolutely. Jody Williams, my left bicep kills me, so it's difficult to pronate. Now I just shoulder press to ease the pain. Thoughts? It's interesting because when I've injured myself in the past, Jody, I've just avoided the moves that cause me pain. So if you're entering a tournament with that injury and your plan is to just shoulder press, you can be sure that you will get caught outside of that move at some point. and could injure yourself further. If you're training with people you can trust on the table and they will allow you to initiate your move, I think it's probably smart.
Yeah. Jody, if you want, what I would do, I've had this too, is on the table, if you can, just hook. Zero pronation. Totally give up your pronation and hook. Now, if you have pain doing that, you have a serious problem. But if you can get away with that, if you stay like that for anywhere from multiple weeks, you will be able to heal and at the same time increase your hook. Like you might be looking at a blessing right there, an opportunity to strengthen an otherwise weaker part of your game, while another part is healing.
What do you think of the Chuck Winchester question? Troll?
I don't see it. Probably a guy who blocked me. I don't see it. Oh, Chuck, what is the bench press? I'm not trolling. He's not trolling.
He's not. How do you?
Because it's mundane, but not mundane enough.
Okay.
For arm wrestling, bench press or curls? It's not a stupid question because what is a bigger part?
Well, I'm more looking at the second part. How do you hook?
Not everyone's super short, Ryan. What do you want to say? You can argue that the pecs come into play as much as the bicep if you're a hook puller. Also, how to hook. We can do a 10 episode segment on how to hook. I don't know what is how to hook.
Yeah. Okay. Jody says I just locked my bicep and drag. Thanks, guys. Jody, I heard a rumor that you wanted to come on the show. Tell us if that's true, because we're lining them up. We got guests lined up till July, but we can shuffle them around as we need to. And of course, we'll still do the regular Facebook Lives with just the two of us in this kind of a show whenever we can. Well, Gabi, you ready to wrap for the day?
Yeah, man. Just want to get an update on you. How's the weight? Where are you sitting at weight? Have you lost any this week?
7 pounds. I'm down 7 pounds in the last week. Totally.
Jesus. Wow. Good for you. And so the goal is it 300 or 280?
300.
Okay. Nice.
So I started at 370. I'm at 363. Mm-hmm. And you know what's messing me up the most?
The mustache? No.
you son of a... it's working night shifts. So I do an intermittent fast from 8 p.m. to noon the next day. And I really struggle to do that while I'm awake overnight at work.
Yeah. What time? What's your shift from what time to what time?
I work 2 full-time jobs and one. I'm a city councilor.
Yeah.
Plus, I work at an addictions residential facility where I work 12-hour shifts, 2 days, 2 nights, and then 4 off. And they're all 7 to 7s. The days are, yeah. And then I work real estate. I sell real estate as well. So it's when I'm on those 2 night shifts that it screws me up. Because A, I sleep for part of my eating period the next day. And B, I'm awake for my entire fast period, which boredom sets in. Yeah.
Brutal. Yeah. That's tough. I work nights too, but my shift, I don't have it's stable. It's consistent. It doesn't shift. It doesn't change. Wow. That is tough.
Yeah. Jason Merlot, it's better to burn out than fade away. But this will not be a long-term thing. I plan on cutting down one of my employment responsibilities within the next month. Mm-hmm. If I achieve what I hope to, and there'll be more on that in the future shows. So I want to remind everyone that we got a big show Sunday. I know it's early, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. We'll be live on Facebook with Rick Pinkney. And then that show will be combined, similar to the Cody show. We'll combine it with the Facebook Live, and we'll post it all on Monday on YouTube.
Perfect.
All right. That's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Closing thoughts, Gabi?
I'm just loving the mustache, man. I hope you keep it forever. Like, never shave that thing off. You look awesome.
You think I should keep it until at least we're done with Rick on Sunday? Just to...
I want you to keep it as long as you can and use me as the reasoning for keeping it to the point where your wife is so pissed off at me. That's what I want.
Well, just if she's watching, and she may be watching right now, she's probably already pissed off at you.
I'm kind of hoping we air the Travis video, because then I have a feeling she'll have a new #1 public enemy.
Oh yeah, well let's mention that for a second. So we did the Travis video last week, and we did it for Travis's channel. So Travis Bajent Unfiltered, his YouTube channel. We sent that footage over to Artem, who is handling getting that online, and we haven't heard anything about it being posted. However, I did make a YouTube video that is unlisted with that video, and it is available for all tier levels of Patreon. So if you go to the YouTube channel and you click on any of the videos, the link for our Patreon site is in there. If you want, that's how you would get access to that video. And it is about an hour of Travis having a discussion with us about various topics.
And it's good. It's heated. I think it's an excellent video.
Yeah. But hopefully at some point in the future, we get an answer on what's happening with the video. If Travis does not post it, then perhaps we will be posting it on our channel. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, Gabi, until next time.
Yes, sir. Try to get some rest and lose a couple more pounds.
Right on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here with the, let me see if I get all this right, Rick. Canadian Arm Wrestling Federation President, IFA referee. Do you hold a position, official position in IFA?
Just on the referee panel.
You're on the referee panel for IFA?
Yep.
Canadian Arm Wrestling Federation Hall of Famer. And if I'm not mistaken, a whole whack of national titles.
Yeah, I got a few.
Okay. All right. We're here today. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Thanks.
Of all.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Gabi.
Hey, guys. What's up?
So, primarily the reason we're here today and the people that want to hear from us, Brandon Justice is up early, Gabi. We're going to talk about, let's talk about the IFA. First of all, how did it come to be, Rick? Can you give us some insight on that?
Well, it's actually, people don't realize it's actually been building for a while. We've been, you go to the Worlds, you're sitting in the Congress. I keep wanting to call it the AGM because that's what we call it in Canada. And so much is going on. You can just see this building, the power being centralized with Hassan and Murcia. That's it. The executive, they keep taking over more power, trying to push stuff through. And they push it through using false pretenses. I mentioned this in a post yesterday, like a few years ago. I don't know if it was last year, the year before. They wanted to ban referees after the age of 60. They said it was due to sport accord. Sport accord. That's why once you're 60, you can't referee anymore. I'm sitting in Congress and I'm bringing up stuff. And I'm on my phone, Googling right then and there. And I brought up, I said, this is bullshit. This has nothing to do with sport accord. It had to do with the fact that they wanted to get rid of a couple people, Leonard and David Sheed. And that's what it came down to. They were going to wipe out anybody else that hit 60. So I proved right there in Congress, I said, it's not true. You don't have to retire at 60 to be a referee. And I pointed out several sports that we had referees over 60 competing or refereeing. And it just barely got voted down. I'm thinking, man, this is crazy. People are just believing whatever they say. Is as soon as now it's the Olympics. Oh, Olympics this, Olympics that. I've been in this sport for 39 years and I've been hearing about Olympics. It's not happening. We don't have the money.
Nope.
But yet, when they tell a lot of these countries, oh yeah, Olympics, they'll do whatever they say. We got to do this because the Olympics. Oh, they'll raise their hand, And you can sit and fight with them, but it doesn't matter. They don't care because if Hassan and Murcia say It's due to the Olympics. It's due to sport accord, GASA, whatever they want, whatever term they want to use. People raise their hand and vote in whatever. And you could just see this all building over the last couple of years. And I've been talking to Anders and that, and a few of us were just shaking our heads going, like, what's going on here? Why are we going in this direction of just believing everything they say? And so it finally came to a head basically last year when they started bringing in this ban. If you go to the PAL, you're going to be banned. I'm thinking, like, hold it now. The PAL and the WAF have got along for years. Why all of a sudden now are you banned if you go to the PAL? Basically, it came down to money. They wanted a share of the IRPA money, the ranking system. I'm thinking, this is insane. So they just want to ban people. So then it started building more steam. And for me, it was really when they got rid of Leonard. That sealed the deal for me. I backed Leonard on what he was doing. And to me, I would have been a piece of shit if I go, yeah, Leonard, I'm backing you. But now that they get rid of you, I'm sorry. Too bad.
No, I remember when that happened, and it happened after the World Championships in Turkey. What was the reason they gave?
Oh, they were bringing up stuff from 10 years ago. But you know what? One of the big thing was that they never mentioned? There was a protest with, I think it was a Bulgarian guy, and he protested. And so Leonard denied the protest. They're looking at the video going, no. Well, Hassan's sitting there. He's arguing with them. Hassan's never refereed. Hassan's wife is arguing. Leonard pulls me over and goes, do you see the foul? I said, no, there's no foul there. Well, they were pissed. You know what I mean? Why they were even involved is beyond me. But I guarantee that had something to do with it because they couldn't push their ways over on top of Leonard.
And they're Bulgarian, right? There's a bias there.
Yeah. But they couldn't get their own way. They couldn't tell Leonard what to do, and they didn't like it. The same as the referee shirts. They wanted us to wear these referee shirts, which didn't meet the guidelines for the Constitution. They didn't care. Here, you guys have to wear these. We all stuck together and said, no, we're not wearing them. And Leonard didn't force us to do it. That was another thing. But again, I wore the old shirts. I didn't wear the new shirts. So again, how hypocritical have I been if I took and said, yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? Sorry, Leonard, I'm not backing you anymore.
Okay, so they get rid of Leonard, and in the same stroke, they announced that there's a new referee in chief.
Well, even there in Turkey, they said Edward's going to be your new assistant, just like that. Edward's going to be your new assistant.
That guy can't referee anything. Like, he's terrible. That guy.
Yeah.
But go on.
So when it came time to pay up the referees, they sat there and they went, today we can get your ticket for this amount of money. Like, for me, it wasn't a big deal. My ticket would have been more, you know what it's like flying out of Canada, how expensive it is. Well, it's not going to be any cheaper that day, so it didn't affect me. But some people, they went, yeah, we can get your ticket for half price today. Here's your money not the money that you paid. You know, not like somebody's flying first class and we're paying the economy fare, but we can get your ticket for this amount. This is all you're getting.
That's dirty.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically what it's coming down to, they want that referee fund. Like 25% of the entry fee goes to the referee fund. Well, they want that because they're spending too much damn money on themselves. So they need more money. And they just voted it.
Yeah, so this happens. Leonard gets banned. There's a bit of an uproar in the United States and Canada, maybe even worldwide. So what are the next steps that get put in motion? The next things that happen?
Well, I've been in contact with these guys for a while over this, and asking, when's this all going to happen? Because we were talking about it, and he says, well, we're putting stuff together. Then they finally waited till after the Europeans to see what happened. As soon as the Europeans finished, then they took and basically put it together because they saw that it was just going nowhere. Hassan wasn't going anywhere. They weren't going to change their mind. They were keeping their ban on and stuff like that. You know what? Arm wrestlers need more than just the World Championships to go compete at. Some people want to go compete with money, against people that may not go to the WAF. Why wouldn't you want to prove yourself? I just want a WAF world title. Why would I not want to compete against somebody else that doesn't compete in WAF? Well, this was stopping you. So that's when the IFA actually got formed, was right after the Europeans, even though it had been building for a while. So then Anders.
Now, how does this coincide with the World Championship being taken away from Poland?
Oh, that had a lot to do with it too, because that was utter bullshit. Why they took that away? That was one of the first steps, also. But then once they started banning people for, belonging to PAL, they took that away. They said, oh no, you can't be. One of the reasons they said they took away the World Championships from Poland was because you were dealing with a for-profit company, the PAL. But then what do they do at the Europeans that were held in Greece? They dealt themselves with a for-profit company. They didn't even go through the Greece Association. They went through another. Greece was basically just signing on to it. WAF actually ran the Europeans.
Okay, so now all this happens. The split gets announced.
Yeah.
Well, the split, the new organization, will say.
Yeah.
And how does that all roll out?
Well, there was, now you got to remember now, some of these countries that are leaving, they belong to their own Olympic committee. So, like Malaysia belongs to their Olympic committee. When they left WAF, that was at the urging of their own Olympic committee. Same as Finland. They belong to their Olympic committee, not like here in Canada, we don't belong to their Olympic committee. But it was their Olympic committee that actually suggested they leave WAF. So what's that tell you right there? When an Olympic committee says, this is bullshit, there's so many things going on in WAF. Like, their books have never been audited. The people that audit it have never seen the bank statement. They've never seen a bank statement. Here, they show them, okay, here's the money we brought in, here's the money we spent. That's it. That's what they show them. You don't see any bank information to prove that this is how much money came in, this is how much money went out.
Yeah, they're not as closely regulated as we would be as a...
Yeah, like ours, if you want to come look at our bank statement, you come look at our bank statement. No problem. With the CAWF, of course, we don't have hundreds of thousands of euros running through our bank account, but still, you're more than welcome to see it if but not with them. That was the auditors. David Ellerstein from Norway, he was an auditor. He never saw a bank statement.
So it never really got to be audited. It was a summary audit.
Yeah.
An audit of a summary.
So, how do we know how much money was actually being spent? How much money was being brought in? Where was this money going? I said they got 150,000 euros out of Malaysia in 2015. And they've blown through that money because now they pay Murcia and they pay friggin' Assam. A non-profit organization is paying the general secretary and the president. And now sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Okay, so now the IFA gets rolled out. There's an announcement that the World Championships, the IFA Worlds, are going to be still held in Poland. Yep. What is the fallout of that?
Well, this is where everything started to, the bashing really began too with WAF and everything, started saying, well, it's not going to be a real Worlds, da-da-da-da-da. And, but I believed, that's what was voted in. That's where we should go. You know what? They pulled that rug out from under them for no good reason, as far as I'm concerned.
What was the reason? Was it simply the not-for-profit aspect of it?
That was one of them.
Before. Yeah.
Well, the nonprofit part was one of them, and also the fact that they were dealing with the PAL period, and the PAL was banned. So right away, anybody had to do with the PAL was also banned right away. Like, this was all an executive decision. You know what I mean? The executive. It's funny too. You got the executive. You got Simon in the U.S. You got Humberto down in Brazil. Humberto will agree with anybody. You've got what's his name from Asia that will agree with anybody. Hungary is the European vice president. He's Assange's right-hand man. Then you got Buddy from Africa that doesn't even speak English, so he's got no idea what's even going on. They don't translate anything for him, so they'll just vote. You know what I mean? It doesn't take much to get that vote, and Murcia gets to vote. He gets a vote as a general secretary, even though he's in a paid position.
Yeah, there's something wrong there.
Well, yeah, I mean, all you need is a couple of people on your side, and then Hassan's got the if you got a tie, then Hassan gets to vote for whatever he wants, which he's pushing through anyway. So, it's a foregone conclusion. Whatever they want gets passed.
So now I'm fast forwarding a little bit because I know that Canada and the United States, maybe not so much the United States, but Canada is largely unaware of what's going on between WAF and IFA.
Yeah.
Until we get to the National Arm Wrestling Championships this past July in Edmonton, where there is a letter from WAF that needs to be read. And the letter is pertaining to yourself. And I was in the meeting, but for those of us watching, can you summarize what WAF was asking us to do?
WAF was asking the CAWF to have me suspended for a year. Like, this was a total surprise to me. I did not know. Joey just said, we're going to talk about your position. Well, I planned on bringing up a vote to join the IFA, but then he kind of jumped in ahead and got his thing all in there. And by the time that was done, we'd run out of time. But yeah, he brings up this letter. So I left the room. They discussed it. I don't know how long. It must have went on for an hour, didn't it?
It did. And the interesting part is I'm not part of the CAWF executive, but I did stay and I spoke heavily on the subject. And it was interesting the way the meeting was steered, that we're not talking about WAF versus IFA, but here we are going to vote on suspending our president based on WAF versus IFA stuff. So it's interesting the way that all got steered. It worked out in the end. I mean, we obviously decided to stand with our president, but it doesn't change the fact that
there was a lot of upset arm wrestlers when I was out in the hallway because weigh-ins were taking place at that time. And more than a couple of people were going to storm in there. And a couple of people said, they vote you out, I'm not even competing.
Well, it's good that they didn't, because that wouldn't have been helpful. And
yeah. I didn't say, no, just leave it be. I'm out there trying to calm a couple of people down, because I'll tell you, a couple of people were going to go into that meeting because they were, yes.
Well, had the vote gone the other way, I'm sure there would have been a lot more stuff happen in the tail end of that meeting. It didn't. That's good. But here we are in a position now where we're sending a team to 2 different tournaments.
Well, and here's the part now, too, especially where they just brought out this rule where anybody that competes in the IFA has to be suspended from your national body. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got about 15, 20 people going to Poland. You're going to suspend them?
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you right now, 7 of them are from Nova Scotia. I'll tell you right now, I'm one of them anyway, plus another 7 arm wrestlers. So basically, you're telling Nova Scotia to go away. Well, the Maritimes will all stick together. So then that. Now you get a bunch of them from BC. Are BC going to turn around and tell their guys, yeah, you're suspended now? Yeah. Can't see that happening. But, I mean, if that's what they want, I mean, that would just be a complete disaster for the Canadian Arm Wrestling Federation. Complete disaster. Because now you're just going to have a mess at nationals. People are going to say, screw you, I'm not going.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't want that to happen. But
I want to summarize my conversation I had with Joey Costello. But first, I want to say shout out to Paul Passmore, who's in the comments section. Paul, that was a terrible thing that happened yesterday, and we wish you speedy recovery, brother.
Yeah, I didn't see the video, and feel bad for you, bud. I've seen too many of them, and I'll tell you, it doesn't get any easier watching those, even after 39 years.
The interesting thing is that Mike Aiello made a comment that is probably true. He's mad at the guy that you're arm wrestling because now you're going to come back stronger and kick all our butts. So I think that's probably accurate. Broken arms usually come back way stronger.
Yeah. But man, got to feel for him, especially this time of year.
Anyway, back on track. We got. I had the WAF Worlds happens. Everybody comes back, and there's a document that is forwarded around to a lot of Canadian arm wrestlers. I received it myself, and we talked a lot about, there's a lot of talk about all the good things coming out of WAF, and one of those things was, the Olympic channel, which, as far as I can tell, is that just, I wasn't even aware that was a thing. But arm wrestling being shown on the Olympic channel, the production that's going to go into it, the potential of a world championship coming to Canada, and they talk a lot about the Olympics. But the other thing that's talked about is that unofficially, you know, Canada may get banned, they may not get banned if they compete at IFA. But what we have to go by is the official release that was made by WAF, that all competitors that go to the IFA will in fact be banned from WAF. Can you comment?
Well, yeah, that's fine that, you know, they're going to ban us from WAF. Chances are nobody's going to go back to WAF anyway. And but they also said they have to be banned from their nationals. And they said if the National Federation doesn't ban them from their nationals, then that federation will be in not good standing. So if we're in not good standing, which means you can't go to the AGM or the Congress, how do you host the Worlds? And if you're not in good standing, how can a country in not good standing host a World Championship?
Well, they were calling for massive divisive action in Canada is kind of what they would have to expect from us. Or there's an offshoot organization and we end up with two Canadian Arm Wrestling Federations, which is
No.
We don't want to go down that road. That's just an ugly road. I mean, our nationals is doing so good. We do not want to go down that road. That's just a road to ruination.
But that is the only fear, I think, amongst Canadian Arm Wrestling is that you would end up with a federation, a federation that ends up supporting the World Arm Wrestling Federation and one that supports the IFA. Yeah.
And here's another part of it too, is the fact that we're not part of the IFA. I mean, I am, but Canada is not part of the IFA. So you don't have to qualify to go. You can just go. You know, if you just want to go, so you don't have to go nationals, you don't have to, and that's a big concern because that could hurt our nationals.
Yeah.
You know, if you can just say, no, screw it, I'm just going to go the IFA championships. You know, I'm going to save my money by not going to nationals. So, I mean, that's a big concern. That's why, you know what, I'd rather just join the IFA. Let's bite the bullet and do it. You know what? If down the road, if things don't work out, or what I'm really hoping for is the fact that finally the other side sees, okay, we got to get rid of Santa Marcia. This has got to change. Pull everything back together. That could happen.
Or isn't it too far gone?
I don't think so. I don't think it's ever too far gone.
Well, if you look at 1998 when the two WAFs split and there was the World Arm Sport Federation and the World Arm Wrestling Federation, then you had eventually one of them survives and one of them does not.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that kind of be similar to this situation? I don't know if you'd ever get those parties back to the table.
Yeah.
Why would you want to? Because as far as I can see in my observations in 20 years of watching carefully what's been happening at the WAF level, because from the time I came in the sport, it was instantly drama at that level. And it went away for a little while. And then all of a sudden there's the corruption sneaking back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those people at the table.
Yeah. So, you know what? If I had a crystal ball, I could tell you what's going to happen. But you know what? I picked a side that I thought was, you know, the fairest side to go to, just to sit back and keep going. No, I'm going to stick with WAF because they're bigger and, you know, this and that. That's just against my conscience. And I can't do that. You know what? You've got to pick a side. And, you know, do you want to go with something new? Yeah, it's scary going with something new. Of course it is. But you know what? Do you want to keep going down this road where you know things aren't right? You know what I mean? It's, man, how can you sit back and go, well, geez, you know, oh yeah, the corrupt, they don't follow the Constitution. They can do whatever they want. And just sit back and go, oh, that's okay. I just want to compete.
Now, I've been dominating the questions here, Gabi. I'll shut up in a minute. But my main question is, how is the governance of IFA going to be different to prevent the same thing from happening all over again?
I don't think you can ever predict what's going to happen in the future, but they've got it set up so this is what it's listed what the executive can do. The executive can only do this, this, and this. They can't do anything else without Congress.
And what is the consequence of stepping outside that, as we've seen WAF do numerous times?
Well, then it would have to go to Congress then. You know what I mean? It states what, but I mean, you can do whatever you want when you get, you know what I mean? You can never stop anything, predict every scenario. But
devil's advocate, though.
Yeah.
Devil's advocate we had before, when Fred was struggling to hold the reins of WAF, we had Igor and Asen on the same page.
Yeah.
Holding up 10 proxy votes from countries that we don't even have a competitor from.
Yeah.
Trying to sway the way things are going. So now you've got those two guys that used to be in cahoots a little bit. They're not in agreement anymore. So Igor is now affiliated with the IFA, and the PAL, of course, is part of.
Well, Igor doesn't really have anything to do with the IFA. He runs.
That would be my next question: is how much power, when you take two parties that were arguably not the best for the sport, and you split them and you stick one in each organization, how does that help? But you've kind of answered my question by saying that, does Igor hold a position of power within the IFA?
No. Igor runs his PAL, and that's it. Anna is vice president, but Anna, you know Anna. Anna's her own person.
Yes, I sure do. And she has been.
She's a huge advocate for para arm wrestling. I don't think there's a bigger advocate in the world today for para arm wrestling than Anna Mazarenko. You know what? She's always out promoting the para part of arm wrestling. You know, just constantly pushing it, taking photos with the para athletes and stuff like that. You just don't find a better advocate for them. So I think she's a great addition to the executive. Anders, he's his own person. You know, Anders, he's, you know, strong, outspoken. He'd be as outspoken as I was at the, you know, in Congress. And Marion Kapla, same thing. Marion's a smart dude. But
no, Anders would be the guy to speak up for sure. So if you were to summarize, like 10, you take a summary sheet, like what's the pros and cons? The Canadian Arm Wrestling Federation is probably going to be put to a vote. In Winnipeg this year, I would be shocked if we do not pick a side, essentially.
Well, the problem we've got right now is the fact that we've got so many executives, they've got as much power as the provinces do. That's one issue we've got, is we've got so many executives. You know what I mean? We get, well, I don't vote because I'd only vote in case of a tie. But you got referee-in-chief, assistant referee-in-chief, you got a team captain, you got a communications officer, you know, the secretary-treasurer. You know, that's quite a few votes. And really, the way I've seen it, most of the executive is not on my side. So that really sways the votes big time. So we'll have to try to convince them otherwise. I mean, once it comes to the fact that they've got to ban people, then I know they'll have no choice but switch that.
What do you think the chances are that IFA the WAF completely holds off? Now I'm asking you for the crystal ball. WAF is talking about banning athletes. What do you think the chances are that they hold off on doing that to Canada because of a pending vote on which side we're going to support?
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. They're doing everything they can to keep Canada on WAF. You know what? I didn't understand how much pull Canada had in the world, but I'm starting to realize it now.
Something the people that are trying to make a decision on which side they support should pay attention to carefully, because after Team Canada goes to IFA, if there is no ban of Canadian athletes, but there are bans around the world of other athletes that are supporting IFA, it will be extremely interesting to see how we are treated differently pending a vote at our national championship. Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, how can you treat one country different than any other country? And why are you treating that country differently? You know?
Exactly.
And I'll tell you, next year's IFA championships will be friggin' humongous. I mean, now you're talking about banning 100 people, you know.
And it's exciting. I want to read Joe Fox's comment here because it's insightful. I am a supporter of our nationals, and I plan on going on in 2020, and we'll bring more Albertans with me. If they ban me, they basically are banning my kids as well. It will be hard to support or get revved up to want to be at any future nationals. I believe my province and country will not do this to our athletes, but you never know who will be in control in the future.
I've stated right from the very first minute, I would not ban anybody, but I'm just one person. I would leave the CAWF before they decide to ban something. I would not stand by and watch that at all. And that would be the downfall of the CAWF right then and there. That would be the end of the CAWF if they wanted to ban people. That's just unconvenient.
I completely agree. I would throw my hat in the ring to come back to the CAWF executive if I thought it would help the situation. So,
well, there is an election next year.
There is an election, so it's a big year for Canadian arm wrestling.
Well, it's there's two positions being elected. There's vice president and secretary treasurer. We broke it up several years ago just so the president and the secretary treasurer didn't have an election in the same year. So
I'll tell you what I don't ever want to do is be the secretary treasurer.
No, Tracy does a great job there.
Yeah, she does,
and she's been busy lately too. You know, shout out to her too for making the Canadian ladies para team for sledge hockey.
Yeah. So, Gabi, I haven't let you get a word in edgewise here the whole show.
Oh man, no, you've taken full reign. That's fine. You know more. You asked the perfect questions. Like I said, I got into it with Simon. And I basically said, you and I both know that the pushing the Olympics or claiming that the WAF is in bed with the Olympics or affiliated. I said, you and I both know that's not true, and it's a ploy to sell. And he said, well, it's true, but we have an in with the Paralympics. So right there, then you can see what they're doing. They're trying to use certain sales tactics to try to win over certain pullers. So it's just, I think it's sleazy as hell, and I'm never ever in favor of banning people in any realm. So right then and there, as soon as you start banning or talking or threatening, I think at this stage it's threats, but we'll see. But it's not good.
I agree. I agree 100%. There's no way. We just do not have the money backing us to get in the Olympics. That's what the Olympics is about now. It's about money. They want to get sports in that are going to draw advertisers, going to draw money. What advertising really is associated with arm wrestling? If it's out there, we have yet to find it. I mean, look at the sports that are getting in. Rock climbing, or they call it sport climbing, break dancing. You know what I mean? And like I said, the inside for 20, and that's for 2024, and the inside track on 2028 is video gaming. Higher, stronger, faster.
That's ridiculous.
Well, and that's because you know what? When you see some kid 16 years old bringing in $3 million because you want a video game tournament, of course they're going to get in the Olympics. Look at the money that's backing them. You got all these big video game producing companies. They'll kick in money thinking, oh yeah, look at the potential here. Does arm wrestling have that money backing us? No, we don't have that money backing us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know all the details going on, but one of the things I'm fucking great at is I can detect when I'm being lied to, and I can detect when I'm when there's a integrity or someone trying to do right or wrong. And I think you've always, Rick, you're always have Canadian arm wrestling in your best interest, and you're always trying to do what's right. It's evident. And on the other side, going back 10, 15 years, when Joey Costello opens his mouth, I read bullshit right through. It's like two polar opposite human beings. So even though I don't have all the details, I'll blindly support you.
You should have read his letter. I mean, they said it was the largest. Well, I'll tell you, they said this was the largest world's ever. 54 countries. Well, I went through and counted the countries. I went through the edited results because the results that WAF put out were not correct. They added all kinds of fake names to the results, and it was proven. The Kristen from Sweden went through and sat there and watched all the video, and he stroked out all the names that weren't in it. In one class, in the 55 kilo left-hand ladies class, senior, 10 names were added. Ashley Costello being one of them.
Holy cow.
10 names in that one class were added, and none of them pulled that day.
Just to boost the numbers.
Just to boost the numbers, make the numbers. And same as they said, 54 countries. Like I said, I went through all the results, wrote down every country. There was 41 countries, not 54. Yeah. Well, I just heard yesterday there's going to be 31 countries at the IFA.
31 with and the real teams. No padded numbers.
Yeah, 31. That's the registration is already closed, and there's 31 separate countries that are going. And I mean, even in the 41 that I counted up, you've had teams like Palestine, a couple of entries, some other countries, 2-3 entries, so all your entries from WAF are coming from 3-4 countries, Russia, Turkey, Georgia type thing, Kazakhstan. That's where all your entries are coming from, right there. One of those countries drop out, then you're going to see the house of cards fall then.
Well, you can just go off the photo of Team Canada and Team USA from last year to this year at WAF, and the team is it's not nearly the same size.
Yeah, well, we'll take a picture in Poland, and you'll see who's bigger.
So the 31 countries that are going to IFA, are they will they automatically get banned for WAF next year?
Well, see, now Canada is one of those 31 countries, but we're not an official member. So it's 31 separate countries, but I think there's 17 official countries in the IFA. Now, Joey was going on about how, there are only splinters of the. Well, yeah, there's splinters. I mean, just like if Canada split off, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you take Japan, for example. I only saw a couple of entries there from Japan. But now the Japan Armwrestling Association is the one that's joining IFA, and that's the original one with Mr. Endo, one that WAF kicked out because they said something wasn't paid, and he was paying it to somebody that wasn't paying them, and that person's still in WAF.
Interesting. I never knew that Mr. Endo was removed from WAF, and
yeah. So now he's part of IFA.
And I said two things this year. I said, if it's somewhere easy to get to, I'll go to IFA in 2020. I said, or if it's in Japan, I'll go to Japan for sure.
You had a good time last time, didn't you?
Gabi and I both.
Yeah.
That was 2005.
That was
so what we should expect to see, and this is to integrity of the World Arm Wrestling Federation, because doing what you say you're going to do or what you're threatening to do, I think either way is going to speak loudly to where we should throw our support next year. So following the IFA championship, we should see a document come out with a list of names that are now banned from the World Arm Wrestling Federation.
And that they have to be banned from their nationals.
Yeah.
Because that's what they voted in. They voted in that the National Federation must ban them from their national championship.
And the chances of us seeing that document, I could see that if, Tajikistan sends one arm wrestler to IFA, they'll release a letter and make it a huge public announcement that guy's banned. I don't think they are going to do that to the Canadian team, even though
they don't.
They say they're going to, and they probably would show a lot more integrity if they actually did, because that's just doing what they say they're going to do. This selective politics model that they seem to be following is not going to help their cause in the end.
I said, and it's funny too, because I actually posted, they were talking about the ban and that, and I actually posted, I said, they don't have the balls to do it. Well, the very next day, didn't they come up with the freaking letter, the big ban thing that they come up with? Freaking, I roared over that one. As soon as I said they didn't have the balls to do it, then they came out with it. So I'll say it again, they don't have the balls to tell Canada, you got to ban these people.
What's beautiful about their stance is that if you do ban people, you cripple yourself.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you lose your credibility. So they
painted themselves into a corner. Yeah. Either bite your nose off to spite your face, or just look like you're friggin' just spouting off friggin' BS.
Yeah.
So pick your poison. So, but yeah, the next year or so is going to be very interesting. And I mean, how many Canadians going to want to go to Georgia? What's that trip going to cost you?
Well, I mean, the selling feature on Georgia is that you don't need a visa to get into the country. But I mean, that's never really been a problem for Canada anyway.
No, we can get into any country anyway. I think we only need a visa for a couple of countries, and it's never been an issue.
Right.
Except for when I went to China. Man, that was a deal and a half. Holy crap! I had to fly to Ottawa to get the visa.
Really? Well, that's more of our own politics getting in the way of that, I think.
Well, yeah. Well, no, it was something that was brought in the first year, so I guess it's just something new for them. But yeah, but it's good for 7 years, so I'm golden now for a while. I just hope I get to use it again.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, what else do we want to talk about now that we've kind of covered the whole WAF IFA subject, and we're kind of at a wait and see point here? What are you hearing about the national championships in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Rick?
You know what? I think this is really going to be huge. The kids, like the junior part of it, I think will be the biggest ever. I'll be surprised if we don't hit 200 junior entries. I've talked to Dave Campbell and I talked to Daryl. So what we're going to do is we ran into some issues last year, so we're going to work on that. We're going to run 4 tables for the juniors and blow them right through, because like I said, we're expecting it. So we got to try to get that done in 2 hours, because last year we had so many issues. First of all, the mall wasn't ready for us when we were supposed to be running at 10 o'clock. I think it was damn near noon before we even got started.
Yeah.
And then the next day, we were supposed to get started at 10, and there was a fire alarm in the building. So that set us back, I think, an hour that day. And it's like, geez, we were just cursed here right from all along. But it still ran off pretty good, if you take out those couple things. So we're going to run 4 tables for the juniors. That way we'll start the Masters and Grandmasters on time, and we'll have a good day. And I think you're going to see hopefully we can top Edmonton's numbers again. Tough to beat 550, but it'd be nice. If we can hit 600, it'd be awesome.
Well, you might see 100 kids just from Manitoba alone.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I've said this so many times. What Manitoba is doing is crazy. They are making such progress with their junior program. Everybody should take lessons from what they're doing, especially up where Brittany Sutherland and her family are. Man, they brought a busload to Edmonton of kids. A busload.
Yeah. Well,
what are they doing different specifically to have that much success?
It's the leadership. So it's not necessarily, it's a very easy model to copy. You just need the motivation to do it.
Yeah. You need the people that are going to go into the community and just work on the kids part of it.
Right.
And so that's what they've done. And they've got the support of the community. And that's the thing. You've got the leaders in the community that are backing them. So it makes a huge difference when you've got everybody on side and you're not trying to fight with different groups to try to get some help here and there. When people are seeing, geez, lots of kids are liking this, why don't we get behind them? That's what's going on. So, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. So Brittany and Corey are part of Peguis First Nation, and it's a huge reserve in Manitoba. And many, many of the kids are involved in arm wrestling because of the effort that they have put into the sport. And that's where the busload of kids came from, is from Peguis.
Yeah.
Their team alone, if you just took outside of the home province, just the kids that came from Manitoba might have been one of the largest teams that were at the Nationals.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
You got succession. So you've got the parents of the kids and like myself and my daughter, and, Mike Dumas comes to mind and his kids, and they're all coming to learning to arm wrestle through their parents' arm wrestling and joining into the sport. And also consistency in Manitoba with the clubs that are operating and bringing in new people all the time.
I mean, we had, I think, half a dozen kids go out to Alberta to compete, and they weren't. And I think only one was the son or daughter of an actual arm wrestler. The rest of them were just kids that got involved in the sport. So You know, it's good to see when you're getting kids involved that aren't where their parents aren't involved in the sport, but their parents are supporting them. That's huge right there when you start doing that. And you're going to see. Well, I mean, we got 2 kids from Nova Scotia going to three kids going to the IFA championships from Nova Scotia.
Oh, I hope they don't get banned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be the nail in the coffin of Canada's support for WAF if we start doing that kind of stuff. But
like I said, how can you ever ban people? Like, holy crap. What kind of society are we living in when we're trying to ban people from paying their own money to go somewhere to compete? You know, you're not paying me to go compete. I'm paying my own money to go somewhere. And then you're telling me I can't go somewhere else? Like,
I'm only aware of one other organization in sport that bans someone that is non-professional, that bans someone from competing in rival organizations. And
what's
that is the International Federation of Bodybuilding, who hands out a pro card to an athlete. And if that athlete has competed for a rival organization, they have banned that person for doing so. That's
a pro thing, though, right?
That's a pro thing, yeah. And I know in powerlifting, you can jump back and forth because we used to have athletes from Manitoba that would compete for the IPA, and then they would jump over and compete in the big like WPO events that were at the Arnold Classic, and jump back and forth between even tested and non-tested events, and nobody said anything to them about it. It's
really, yeah, because you want to build the sport, not friggin' shoot it down.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing. You're shooting yourself in the foot by not, you know what? Are you promoting the sport or aren't you? You know,
well, also the other thing is, in order for the powers that be in WAF to make it look like they are not focused on PAL, they have to release a letter that's a blanket letter that says you could be banned for any organization that is not affiliated with WAF. So that could include UAL, WAL, all those ones.
Well, that was their original letter. That was their original letter that if you compete in anything that didn't use WAF rules exactly, which we don't because we run triple elimination, then you will be banned, including the WAL. And so when it first started, I used to argue with Mercia over, you know, sending emails back and forth. I said, this is ridiculous. You know, he says, well, no, it's bad for the sport. I said, listen, we've had to deal with the WAL all this time that would drop tournaments on top of ours on a regular basis. But we never banned anybody from going to WAL. We just had to deal with it and put up with it and go, this is why you should come here. You know what? If you want to go to the WA and then the WAL, you know, finally changed their format to go to the challenge system as opposed to tournaments. But you know what? We can't just keep changing because of something else, and we can't ban somebody from going to WAL. You know, if we don't have a tournament for 2 months and you want to go compete there because nothing's going on here and I'm going to ban you, please.
Nobody should have the power to dictate where and when we compete as arm wrestlers, especially in a sport that is done largely out of love. Like there's not too many guys making money or living off of the sport of arm wrestling.
Yeah, if you're paying me, that's one thing. Like if you want to sign, like the WAL does, they sign a contract, so you're with them. But that's one thing. You know what you're getting into when you sign on the dotted line. They're going to pay you, so okay, there you go. Nobody's paying anybody. I mean, frig, you know, what it costs to go to the WAF this year, you know, by the time you fly over there, you're spending a couple of $1,000 by the time your plane ticket and your hotel room and your food and that. And now you're going to ban me? Seriously?
Yeah. It would be a surprise to most of us. So
I've also found it funny too that they haven't banned other tournaments. Like, I mean, Leonard's been banned, but he runs the Arnolds, but they haven't said anything about banning anything with the USAA.
That's an interesting point.
You know, and I said to Leonard, I said, how come they've never banned anything that you run? He says, oh well. So I find that kind of interesting too. That, you know, so now, I mean, how come they haven't banned anybody from competing in any of my events?
Here's a question for you. Are you aware if, like, I remember Gennady was not going to compete in the top 8 for fear of being banned from the World Arm Wrestling Federation. And this is me paraphrasing what I have heard. because he is also the head coach for the Georgian team. Would that be correct so far?
Now, I don't know about being the head coach, but that's possible, yeah.
Okay, well, or a coach anyway. But he is a guy that they would want also probably competing when when WAF holds their event in Georgia.
Right.
So has WAF banned the guys that have competed in the top 8? Because
I've yet to hear of anybody being banned. I've yet to hear of anybody being banned.
Because you have
as far as I know, nobody's ever got a letter. I've never got a letter.
I think they would really want Lavon at least to be present at that event next year.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Who could be the winner of the top 8 by the time that happens.
Oh, man, we should get into talking about that now that we're on to that one.
Sure.
I'll tell you, this final match in this top 8, every match there is a toss-up. It's a toss-up. Every match in there is like, which way is this one going to go?
Well,
you guys have any predictions?
I don't know if I'm there yet, but I mean, who are the final matches now that we have? We've got Lavon versus
Vitali.
Boy, I'll tell you, that's a toss-up right there.
No, sir. No, sir.
You don't think?
No.
Who are you picking?
Vitali's too smart, too refined, and Lavon, although he's a fucking powerhouse, is loose in his mechanics. He'll get exploited.
Now, I don't know if I'm refereeing any of those, so I can't really make a prediction on any of them. So I might be refereeing one of them, so I don't want to say anything. Tim Bresnan and Trubin.
I think I find Trubin to be slightly overrated, and I think Tim's going to win that match.
The thing with that match is Trubin's like he looks great. He's fucking, compared to Tim, he looks like 10 times the athlete. The problem is when that match gets ugly, Trubin won't know how to react, and Tim loves the ugly. Tim's just a warrior, and I like Tim all the way with just the intangible qualities and experience, and I like Tim with that one big time.
Okay, what about Garbiev and Prudnik?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Like Ungarbayev looks amazing, but Prudnik, I almost had him. I think I had picked to beat Vitali when they pulled, and I was completely wrong in that match.
Did you get any right on the last one? It's funny. I went back and watched that afterwards. I went, man, I don't think you got any right.
I was doing so well, and I was doing so well with the WAL picks. And then we got to the top 8, and I think I got just about everything wrong in that one. But I'm going to agree. I think Vitali's going to win the match in the final against Lavon for the same reasons. Lavon is a powerhouse, but he's got weak links in the whole chain. I think they can be exploited. And the way that match is going to end up is going to be more favorable for energy conservation for Vitali as well. And it's tough.
You ever see Vitali's hand? Man, that's a big hand. I mean,
he's a huge guy.
Levin's got sausage fingers, but man, he's got a long friggin' hand and arm on him.
I pulled Lavon, and I think he is, mind you, I'm pulling the WAF version of Lavon, so there's 2 different versions. It's like the gray and the green Hulk, but his hand didn't feel that good to me. I mean, yeah, his arm is incredible, but his hand and wrist flop.
I'll tell you a quick good story about Vitali. I think it was last year or the year before. He comes over and wants his picture taken with Dave Hicks. What's that say about Dave Hicks? He comes over to Dave Hicks and wants to get his picture taken. That's how big Dave Hicks is in Russia.
Yeah. Hey, Sheldon has a relevant question here, guys. He says, hey, guys, to be able to vote at the AGM, what does a competitor have to do? Well, Sheldon, you need to get voted in as the president of your provincial association. Or you talk to people in your province to vote as the voice of the arm wrestler and not based on, and this is the challenge. They need to vote as the representative of the arm wrestlers and what they want, not what they personally want to see happen. Now, if all of Ontario told the members of the executive from Ontario that this is what they want, I'm not certain you would see that vote reflected in the meeting.
Oh, I think you would. Tony would take and ask people what they think. Tony would go out and talk to people.
Those comments are specifically directed towards certain voting members of the Ontario Association. And Tony, I think I hold him in very high regard. I think
he would absolutely vote. Yeah.
I do.
But and that's the thing. Arm wrestlers got to get out there and talk to their provincial representatives. I mean, you should know who your provincial and even the executive. You know what? Find out. You can go on the CAWF website and look and see who the executive are, and send them messages and say, I think you should stay with WAF. I think you should go with IFA. One way or another, if you want your voice heard, go out there and tell people what your opinion is.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people have expressed it online, but the silent majority, whichever way it goes, need to let everybody know which way they want to be voted in. So
in fairness as well, I don't know how you feel about this, Mr. Gabi, but I think we should probably extend the invite for Joey Costello to show up on the show if he wants to talk his side of the argument.
As far as I'm concerned, this show is and will be always a ban-free show. Anyone is welcome to express their opinion.
Well said.
Anyone. We've invited Devin. He's declined. I mean, anyone who wants to voice their opinion, as long as it's an interesting opinion, or any opinion really, is more than welcome to be a host, be a guest on the show.
Excellent. Well, we've almost gone an hour here, guys. Anything you want to say to wrap up, or anything else you guys want to chat about before we go off the air?
Not as far as IFA. If we ever want to talk about rules sometime, I'm more than happy to do that.
Well, actually, yeah. While we have Rick on, I wanted to ask Rick something. I've been noticing that break arms have been more of an issue in the last 3 to 5 years than, in the previous 10 years I've been in the sport. I saw one yesterday with Paul. My initial reaction was, of course, it's tragic, and I feel for him. As a ref, and I'm not an official ref, but I've ref tournaments, I would have stopped that match. Even though he's a pro, he was behind his hand. He lost his hand and was driving so hard with his side pressure, and you can see that there's vulnerability. As a head ref, and as I believe that with you and Leonard, the two best refs on the planet, what do you think is the root cause of break arms today, and what can you do to what can we do as a sport to improve on that?
It all comes down to how people practice. You know what I mean? You got to teach people right from the get-go. This is a proper way to do it. I don't give a shit how big and strong you are. You can break your friggin' arm. I saw a buddy break his arm on World's Strongest Man, that one time. People got to be taught the proper way. I won't mention his name, but I was refereeing AAA one time. I had to keep straightening this guy's shoulders out, and I thought, he's going to break his arm. Sure. And he did. Not at that particular time, but it was, a few months down the road, he broke his arm. He wanted to start off, and right away I kept straightening his shoulders before the go. And I thought, man, he just wants to throw that shoulder right in there. You know what? And I wouldn't advise anyone to teach somebody a shoulder roll until you've had years of experience at that. Because, man, that is such a tricky spot to get into, because all it takes is somebody with good back pressure. I might be able to press you, might be able to press, Ryan, but then all of a sudden I hit somebody else that, has got better back pressure, can pull me outside a bit. Well, I'm toast now. Now I'm in a super dangerous position. So I'm not a big fan of people turning whatsoever. So I don't know if I didn't see the match. I went to look it up and I couldn't find it. It must have been taken down. Because I wanted, as much as I hate watching them, even after all the break arms I've seen, doesn't make it any easier. And, I need to watch them just for my own, what went wrong here. And I've seen some people turn the slightest little bit, and I mean the slightest little bit, where you wouldn't even think about stopping the match, and break their arm. So sometimes it is just, weak bones, whatever, John Miyazaki used to say, you know what, you break your arm wrestling, chances are you could go outside, slip and fall on some ice and break your arm. But I don't know. I think it all comes down to the training. People got to start training better and stay out of that. And, you're stronger because, you're not using muscle anymore. Once you start flipping that around, you get that bone locked in there, and then that's what it is. It's just bone holding that together.
Mm-hmm. I was at a Montreal practice about 3 weeks ago, and we had 3 tables running. And when I got in, most of them are new guys. Half of them don't have tournament experience. The other half have a couple tournaments under their belt. So it's a relatively green team. And at one table there was a guy king moving, and the other table there was a guy trying to press through a hook. And I'm like, man, neither guys. Maybe if they have one tournament under their belt, that's it. And I said, you got to stop the bad habits as soon as they start rearing their ugly head right away. I'm with you 100% with that, Rick.
Yeah, especially, you know what? If I hit you inside the hook and you pull through me, that's ugly fast. You can't even stop that as a referee. If all of a sudden I'm hitting you and you just decide, okay, I'm going to kick it into overdrive and pull through me, you're just going to rip my arm right apart.
I give a story to the new guys. When in 2005 or 6, I was in Vermont State, and I was pulling a 054 class, and the guy pulling me was a little bit lighter, and he went, a new guy, no one's ever seen him, and he went right into a strong press into my left. And the way I pull is I let the guy initiate, get completely control and happy, and I just go sideways. It's the only thing I knew how to do, well, especially back then. And I said to the ref, get him off his shoulder. Like, he's right on his shoulder, hand almost touching shoulder. And I said, get him right off because I'm about to go sideways. I'm not trying to take his hand out, nothing. I'm just going straight through that, his and the ref says, no, he's okay. And I'm like, and even though I was green, I just instinctively knew something it's not going to end well for him. And it was like a ratchet, crack, crack, crack. It broke 3 times on the way to the pin. And I said to myself, man, refs need to, refs really need to understand better when a break arm can happen. Like you said, sometimes you cannot avoid it. Everything looks fine and boom, it happens. But I still say 2/3 or half the time, a ref could stop it early.
Yeah. I was pulling, this was a long time ago, and I came around inside. I went to press a guy, and he was way stronger than I was. And as soon as he started torquing up, man, I'll tell you, I bailed out of that position because I could just feel everything tighten up, and it's like, I'm getting the hell out of Dodge in a hurry because I could just feel it. And it's like, man, that was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever felt being in there. And it's hard to get out of that position once you're into it. Like to be able to whip your shoulder back out of that to get out of the way of it when somebody's plowing right through you. When I'm around with my shoulder right behind it, and if you fetch up and start pulling through me, it's not easy to get out of that position, to be able to pull your shoulder outside of that once you've already started your momentum coming through.
Mm-hmm. Why the press is such a good move is because it's backed by your frame. It's backed by leverage. And like in a bicep to bicep hook, when the guy's stronger, you open up and you get pinned.
Yeah.
But in a fully committed press, when it goes south or when it goes sideways, you're vulnerable to ugly for sure.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, you can't get out of it quick enough. I was able to because I had enough years experience to be able to say, this is bad, get out of there. And I didn't. I just let my arm friggin' go because I knew I was in for a world of hurt. So I bailed out of that. But, I mean, anybody that wouldn't have had much experience, they would have been just lost it. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, it ain't pretty watching. And, as a referee, I'll tell you, it's sure tough on you when a person's arm breaks when you're refereeing a table.
I can imagine.
I've had to peel somebody's hand off another guy's hand because he felt it, and he couldn't let go. He just froze up and just held on, and I'm peeling his hand off, and it's like the worst one though ever was we were in PEI one year. I wasn't refereeing, I was announcing. We had 2 in one night. I was ready to go home at that point. I'm announcing and I'm looking down, and when the second one was like, I just want to go home. I've had enough. And but you know what? Luckily, we haven't had any in a long time down here because we really try to push people to stay out of that press and either top roll or hook and stay square with that table. Do not come in and keep looking at that hand. But that's what it comes down to. It's just your training. You got to teach people right.
Habits. Yeah, habits.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. If people practice bad, and I can tell when I'm refereeing how you practice. If I'm having a hard time setting you up, I know this is the way you practice. You're practicing with your wrist bent. You're practicing climbing over the fingers and all this. And I can tell that when I'm setting you up. And you know what? I don't know why people want to practice that way. Practice even in a worse position than what you should be at. That's how you're going to be a better arm wrestler. Don't practice with your wrist bent. Jeez, that's the worst thing you can do, because as soon as the referee straightens your wrist, now all of a sudden you feel uncomfortable and you're bitching and complaining.
Well, it's because the problem is people are trying for their ego, trying to get wins at practice. Some guys look at practice pulling as to boost their ego and to get moral victories and stuff like that. So they make concessions. I see it all the time. Man, 8 times out of 10 when I'm practicing with someone, they're over my thumb, like big time. And I'm like, what are you doing? You'll never get this in a match ever. And even if the ref is shitty, I will never let the ref start the match with you.
Yeah.
So all you're doing is you're starting the match on false pretenses, and any result that can come after that is not accurate. You're just hurting yourself.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
The only time it's good, say for you, is if the guy's just not strong enough. Here, take more.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only time it's good for you. At least then the person knows. You know what I mean? I want you to get up. Go ahead, get over my thumb. I want, because I need more practice out of you. Yeah. So
that's the one thing I dislike in practice, is letting guys get a huge advantage that they wouldn't normally be allowed to get in a tournament. So if I'm going to give somebody an advantage because I can handle more, it's going to be something else that is won't put them at a disadvantage when they get to a tournament. So if I'm pulling a guy, I want a fair grip, but you could have 2 guys pulling on my arm with a strap that's attached some other way or something like that. That's fine if you can take and do that at that point. But if it just happens to be not many people left, or they're burnt out and they don't feel like doing it, you want to give somebody as much advantage as possible, just so you can get a better workout at the end of it. You know what I mean? Everybody happens to burn it down. Say, here, take more. I'll grab you lower, whatever, just to burn your arm out a little more.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm at practice and someone grips up with me, I can automatically tell, are they trying to train in practice, or are they trying to get a win off me? And if they're trying to get a win off me and I'm in that mode and I'm okay with it, and I'll try to I'll allow it, but sometimes your elbow hurts, or and you just want to look, dude, this is practice, right? Let's both try to get something out of this. You something, me on the defensive side, you on the attacking side. But let's try to both profit out of this practice, not just but it's not always the case.
Well, I'm just getting back on the table now at an operation, and the funny thing is, I had an operation on my wrist and buggered up my shoulder because I ended up with frozen shoulder. And man, I'll tell you, coming back from that is horrible. You can't top roll. You've lost all that. I don't know how many people realize where your top roll comes from. And I was so specific on who I would practice with, because I was just worried about tearing my shoulder all apart. There was only a couple of people at practice I'd even practice with, because I know they wouldn't friggin' haul off and hit me when I wasn't the least expecting it.
Right.
What's your relationship like with John Thompson, and how awesome is that guy?
He's a great guy. Great guy. Yeah, no, he's a super guy. He moved up here. He's an American. He's from Wisconsin.
Minnesota. Yeah, it was Wisconsin.
Minnesota. Yeah. It was funny too, because I was down there doing a tournament, and somebody said, "Yeah, we got a guy here who's moving to Nova Scotia." I'm thinking, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and some guy from here is moving to Nova Scotia. 99.9% of the people in this room couldn't pick it out on the map if their life depended on it. But sure enough, he moved up here, and no, he's been great for the sport up here. He's great for announcing. You know what I mean? He's a real student of the sport, which is nice, and he's having a good time. So, no, he's a good guy.
Is he booked for Winnipeg?
Pretty good arm wrestler too.
Yeah, and he's training hard for Winnipeg too. He's really training hard, especially.
Is he booked as an announcer?
I think so. I think he's. Daryl's already talked to him. I think so. About that. Yeah, he's got a great voice for announcing.
One last question from you, Rick. if I didn't freeze up and you guys didn't lose me. Did you guys lose me?
No.
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay. Everyone knows you as a ref, but what's the biggest moment or the biggest tournament or win or experience of you as an arm wrestler?
I'd have to say in 98 at Worlds, and I finished second to Mike Barrett at the Worlds, but two of us were standing on the podium together, first and second. So that was, that was a special moment. Mike and I went back and forth for many years. I beat him one year, and I beat him in 97, and then he beat me in 98, and he won World, and I took second. So it was a nice moment then when we were both standing on the podium together. So
now, that was Thunder Bay, correct?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people don't realize that. I think did you guys have Neil Pickup in your class?
No, Neil was in the class above us.
Was okay.
I'm trying to think who else was in there. God,
wasn't Yoshi Kanai in your class?
No, he was a lot bigger then.
He was down there. I remember Mike arm wrestling him in 1998.
Okay, maybe he was then. Maybe he was. I had a concussion a couple of weeks ago, so my memory isn't real good.
Stop full contact fighting out there, Rick.
Oh man, yeah, with a metal post. I lost.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was probably it. And also, what was really special for me was when the Nationals were in New Brunswick. I think it was '99, and we had so many people either winning or were up on the podium. Even though I forget what I even did that day, but it was just nice to see so many of the people that I had trained do so well. And that means more to me than anything anyway. You see somebody, you've been training somebody and see them come along. I would much rather coach than referee any day. Being able to coach somebody through and seeing them do well, that makes you feel good inside.
Yeah. Well, on that note, gentlemen,
I think Garbage froze up now. He seems either that or he's just frozen in space.
Might be frozen in space. Well, Rick, I appreciate you coming on the show. And
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and this is valuable information, and it's going to get put out there. It's here now. It's on Facebook as we speak, but it will be. Gobby's gone altogether now.
Yeah. Oh, is he? No, I still see him frozen there. And you know what? If anybody has any questions, you can always, message me on Facebook, send me an email, whatever. I'm more than happy to answer people's questions. It's, whether you're on my side or on the side of WAF, it doesn't matter. But if you have questions, that's fine. Send me a message. I'm more than happy to answer it.
Sounds good. And Gobby, you're back, but we're just wrapping up. So
it's all good, man. I got in my fill. A great interview. Big fan of Rick's. Happy we had him on the show to clear some stuff, and I can't speak for Ryan, but man, I'll support you no matter what. Right to the doors of hell.
Well, I appreciate that, and appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully we answered some questions that people might have had or may have after they watch it on the YouTube channel there.
I think that does. It has been very insightful and very informative for people. So I hope everyone gives it a watch, especially those that are voting. And we'll talk to everybody soon.
Okay. Take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Rick.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye now.